Welcome to today's video, and in this video I'm going to show you step by step how I transform this old, very bland living room into an absolute stunning living room for this house. And the story with this house is basically I was discussing with my family what kind of investment we should do, because we had saved up a little bit of money collectively, and we were discussing how we should basically invest the money wisely. And so what we decided is to purchase a house and basically flip it. At that time, my wife and I were actually looking for a place to stay in. So essentially what we did is we purchased a place. Thankfully, we didn't have to take out a loan. We purchased a place outright, and my wife and I, we lived there. And while we lived there, we actually flipped it. Would I do this again? Absolutely not. No way in hell. Because it was the worst. I tell you what. The reason why, it's very simple. If you're going to live in this house and you're going to renovate it at the same time, you need to take some things into consideration. If you're super health conscious, or even if you're not that super health conscious, you have to make sure that you basically create a cordoned off area for the areas that you're going to be doing a reno, because the dust from all the demolition or sanding or whatever it is that you're doing in that reno space can very easily travel through the house, and you do not want to be breathing that stuff in when you're trying to sleep or just relax or anything. So I definitely wouldn't recommend it. Another reason why I definitely don't recommend it is because essentially you have to do things in steps. So let's say there's, just for example, there's 10 steps to renovating a room. Instead of you renovating and doing all of those 10 steps around the entire house, you have to do the 10 steps in the one room, and then you move to the next room and you do the same 10 steps again. So it's extremely slow, and it's extremely repetitive. You have to do the same steps again and again. So take it from me, don't do a renovation if you guys are living there. Or if you are going to live there, then maybe just consider it seriously with those cons in place. So as you see, I've already ripped up the carpet in this living room, ripped out the corners that hold in, I don't know what they're called, like carpet grippers or something, that basically hold the carpet tension in the corners. And I've grinded back the underlay adhesive that was really stubborn. Then I went around this room and I ripped out all the cornices. You have to rip out all the cornices before you even touch any walls. And if you do it the right way, it will come apart so easily. If you don't rip out these cornices at the top, then good luck to you, because the walls you're going to struggle a lot with the walls. They're going to come out in tiny little pieces. It's going to make more mess, and it's going to take you a lot more time. So you go around the entire room with a knife, a Stanley knife, and you score both the top and the bottom of the cornice. And then you go around with the crowbar, ripping all the cornices off. And then essentially the walls will just peel off just like that. It's actually pretty simple. So here my brother comes to help out, and we remove this window here just so that we can get ease of access into that van, and we clear all this out, take it to the skip bin. After we're done with that, we actually clean up properly, and we re-remove that window, because on this day we were actually ready to install the new windows. So don't ask me why, but I decided for some reason that I was going to build these windows from scratch. Yes, that's right. So I bought the raw timber, the Tasmanian oak, and I started cutting them up into bits, and I did everything. I stained it, and then I glazed it all myself. There's a bit of footage here of me doing that here. So essentially I get these long pieces of Tasmanian oak, I cut them down, I laminated them, and then basically put it together just like a door frame. And yeah, it wasn't that hard, but again, it's just when you can get someone else to build you a professionally made product, it's just, I don't know why I did it, but anyways, they turned out good, and I don't regret it. It was fun, but it was definitely a labor of love. So I installed both those windows, and we made sure that they were protruding the right amount. You put that plaster right up against it to make sure that it's flush, or in this case I wanted it flush with the plaster, so that's what we did here. Then we primed the floor for the self-leveling, and then as you can see here, I am basically caulking around all of the perimeter to make sure that when I pour that self-leveler, it doesn't escape to the other rooms, or it doesn't go underneath the bottom plates or anything like that. So just preparing all of that for the self-level here. So when I get all of this floor prepared up, I go out there and I start mixing up this self-leveler in a bucket, just one bag at a time, and just use this, I don't even know what this is called, this spike roller I think it's called, to sort of even it out. And then I guess you sort of let you got to push it into where you need to mark out the floor where the low spots are, so you do sort of need to help it into that position, and then use the spike roller, and it sort of levels itself out. You might be noticing that I'm working at very unusual, strange times, like sometimes at night, sometimes in the morning. And that's because I sort of was doing this in my spare time. At this time I had a full-time job, so I'd come back from work, and if I had enough energy, I would essentially do the work that was required in the reno at the time. So I'm definitely a fan of DIY, but as you can see here, I'm doing my own electrical work. Do not be alarmed, that is because I'm a licensed electrician. My day job at the time of recording this was actually not an electrician, or I had to be an electrician, but the actual job was a lift installer. So I was actually working for Otis Elevators. You might know them, they're pretty big, international elevator company. So during my day I was installing elevators, and by night I was trying to finish off this reno. It was definitely very rewarding. I learnt so much, made a lot of mistakes, but that's why we do these things, so we can learn from our mistakes and hopefully improve on them on the next one. So here we're starting the flooring here, and I really wanted to try my hand at some herringbone flooring. And again, as you can see here, I did it the most difficult way known to mankind. I got the long lengths of boards and I cut them all to the exact length that they needed to be. If you know anything about herringbone flooring, it needs to be a multiple of the width. So if the width is 150 mil, then it needs to be 300 or 450 or 600, and it can't be even a mil bigger or smaller. And then here again, I'm even putting in the grooves, because when I cut it, obviously the grooves go out. So here we're starting in the middle. I made these 2 triangle pieces in the garage, and I just start with those as a template so that it can make things a little bit easier moving forward. So once I got those 2 going, it just sort of everything kind of fell into place. I actually spent a lot of time just getting this right, because obviously these 2 represent the first 2 starting angles, and you don't want those 2 angles to be too open or too closed. If it's not a perfect 90-degree angle, then it'll start opening up the boards, and there'll be gaps larger and larger and larger as you continue on with the herringbone pattern. So you really want to make sure that this first sort of 2 rows are spot on, and then everything else will fall into place afterwards. So some of the, I guess, things that I would do differently if I were to do this reno again, basically all the extra items that I did that didn't necessarily add value to the house. So again, this was my first flip, this is my first house reno, and I guess I didn't really take into consideration or ask myself the question, does this add value to the house, versus doing something else. So adding hardwood flooring wouldn't have made maybe a massive difference in comparison to floating floors or hybrid flooring or something like that. Building my own windows definitely didn't add any value to it. It was probably a lot cheaper, but again, the time that it took me didn't end up being worth it. I removed all the walls, the external walls in the entire house, purely just to add insulation in there. And again, even though the people who own the house now, I'm sure, are benefiting from that, it doesn't add value, because when people come to buy the house, that's not going to be something that they look at when they give their offer. So those are some of the things that I would do differently on the next one. Now that we've finished off the flooring in the living room, we basically get started on the plastering. So we bring in all the sheets, and again, my brother's here to help me out. So we basically hang them up, and we hang them up 100 mil off the floor, instead of the standard 10mm off the floor. And the reason why we do that is, in this situation, I wanted to put in some recessed baseboards or recessed skirtings. I guess whatever you are in the world, you call it different things. But that recessed skirting will sit underneath the plaster, so it's a nice finish. So this is the living room after we finished putting up the plaster, and we basically get a professional to come and stop everything up. And the reason why I get a professional is because I actually tried stopping up myself and I just made a massive mess. The plaster just kept falling off my trowel and it became very frustrating very quickly. So this is what the living room looks like. I put all the axes on, put all of the plaster on, and then as you can see here, the plaster has come and he's stopped everything up and it sanded it down, and then now it's basically well, actually I don't think in this video he's sanded it down quite yet. So he will sand it next, and then here you go. This is after it's been sanded, ready for painting. As you can see, I put a protective coating over the herringbone, even though it's still not finished. I just didn't want to risk getting paint and the wood absorbing that paint in. I don't know about you, but painting is just one of those things that, even though I really don't enjoy doing it, I find myself doing it time and time again. And I guess it's a cost thing, because really I think painters are probably the best profit margin trade out there. I mean, to paint the whole of my house, this house here, 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, it would probably cost something around the $8,000 Australian ballpark figure. And I mean, their materials is probably no more than like $1,000 in paint. That's about it. But yeah, I guess when you're renovating, I guess you're always going to do the painting yourself, whether or not you like it. So anyways, we're done with that, so we can move on. So let's get to the electrical. So what I did here in terms of electrical was some 8 downlights, 4 speakers around for surround sound, added a couple more GPOs, some PowerPoint, and some two-way switching, so you can turn the lights on and off from both entrances. Now here I was lucky enough to actually get a friend of mine, or a friend of my mum's, to come and show me how to do the floor sanding. So he's a retired floor sander, I guess. That's what he did for a living, and he still had his machinery. So he gave me a rundown of how to basically use the drum sander, and there was another couple of other machinery, other sanders to sort of finish this off. So as you can see, I just go back and forward, starting off at an 80 grit, making my way up the grits, and in between the sands I would essentially fill in any gaps or any cracks in the wood. That's what I'm doing here. Just got a trowel and some gap filler, and I'm just filling in all of the gaps in between me sort of doing the sanding. And then here I got a hot glue gun. So there was some, I guess you could call them, imperfections in the wood, some big holes, and so what I did is I used some black hot glue. I saw this trick online and it turned out fantastic, and if I was going to do these floors again, I'd definitely use that, that hot glue trick. It's definitely a trick that I recommend. So you basically just fill in any holes with the black hot glue and then sand it down on the next run. So finally we're coming to an end of this floor sanding journey for the living room. We basically finish off with this last pass here with a 240 grit sandpaper underneath it, and it doesn't turn it, it's just a buffer, so it kind of just vibrates. So it's not a very aggressive sanding, it's a very sort of smooth sanding, and it really just makes it that much smoother as you're finishing. So after a very good vacuum here, we will take out the oil and then we roll it on. We start by cutting in, and then actually I don't think I had to cut in with this one because we didn't have the baseboards down, so we just basically roll straight on there with the oil. We gave it a couple of hours, and then we basically added the first coat of water-based sealant, and after the first coat of water-based sealant, we gave it a buff between here. This is not sandpaper, it's like a scourer, the same thing that you would use to essentially wash your kitchen dishes with. That's the material, that thing. So we just buff it between the coats, and then this is the second coat that we're doing here of the sealer. and it really just I was so happy with the end product. It made it such a natural looking timber. It wasn't too glossy. It was like a very matte finish. So again, I'm very happy with it, and I would choose the same product again. It was Loba, I believe it is, Loba. I think it's a German product. It definitely wasn't cheap, but most certainly worth it. So thanks for sticking around to the end, guys. If you have any constructive criticism, please leave it in the comments. I'm sure that I or other people reading the comments will benefit from them. So I guess I'll see you on the next one. Thanks.